I always tell myself I like late walks because the streets are quieter, the air feels cleaner, and no one bothers to look twice at a kid with his hands in his pockets, staring at lit windows like they're movie screens. But truth is, I think I've been waiting for someone to notice me. That night, it was her voice. "You're out walking late." I turned. She was leaning on the wooden railing of her porch, light from the living room spilling out just enough to shape her face. My friend's mom's neighbor. I'd seen her before, carrying groceries, talking to the mailman, adjusting the flowers by her steps. Always polite, never long enough to leave more than a trace. Only to see who I might bump into, I said, not sure why my mouth let the words out. She tilted her head like she wasn't expecting me to answer that way. Then she laughed, soft, almost like she wanted to keep it to herself. I stopped on the sidewalk, shifting my weight. I thought she'd just go back inside, close the door, let the night eat up the sound of it. But instead, she asked, "Do you drink coffee this late?" The coffee shop near the corner was nearly empty. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the kind that make every shadow sharp. She ordered black, no sugar. I ordered the same, pretending it was my usual, even though I always add cream when no one's watching. She noticed. "You're making a face." I shook my head, embarrassed. Guess I'm not as tough as I thought. That made her smile again. I kept looking at the table, folding the paper napkin into sharp corners, just so I wouldn't stare too long. It felt strange, her knowing my friend's name, asking how long we'd known each other. Normal questions. But underneath, there was something else. She remembered details too easily. The way I'd said hello once in the driveway. The music I had playing from my car. Even the way I held the door open, like I was unsure if I should go in first. Nobody remembers those things about me. The night outside looked softer after coffee, like the world had been waiting while we sat inside. We walked slowly back, steps not quite in rhythm. "You always walk alone?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Keeps my head clear." She gave me a look I couldn't read. Not pity, not curiosity, something quieter. Her hands were in her coat pockets, and I caught myself flicking my eyes toward them, wondering if she was hiding how cold they were. At her porch, she paused. Not a long pause, just enough for me to feel it in my chest. "Well," she said, "don't stay out too late." I nodded, pretending I wasn't waiting for more. She stepped inside, the door closing soft behind her. I made it halfway down the street before I pulled out my phone. There were no messages, just a half-typed one I'd never sent earlier that day. Something stupid to a girl I don't even talk to anymore. I deleted it without thinking. The screen lit again almost instantly. A number I didn't recognize. Next time, I'll buy the coffee. Same place. I stopped walking. The night stretched out around me, quiet, holding its breath. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was walking alone. The next time wasn't planned. It was one of those damp evenings where the air clings to your skin, the kind that makes you want to stay inside. But I found myself outside anyway, pretending I needed the walk. She was out front again, kneeling by the flower bed, even though the soil was still wet. Her hair fell forward as she tried to pull a stubborn root, and before I thought it through, I offered, "Want a hand?" She looked up, smudges of dirt on her wrist. "You'll regret it." But I didn't. 10 minutes later, I was holding the flashlight while she worked, the beam catching little drops of water on the leaves. We didn't talk much, just the sound of her gloves brushing against earth, the occasional scrape of metal. It felt like enough. When she finally stood, brushing dirt from her knees, she said, "You're supposed to be at an age where you're out with friends, not stuck here helping your friend's mom's neighbor dig in the dark." I laughed, though it came out uneven. Maybe I like this better. Her eyes flicked to me, then away just as quickly. Inside, she made tea, said coffee was too heavy at night. The kitchen light was warmer than the one at the cafe. I noticed how she set 2 mugs down, one a little closer than the other, like she wasn't sure if I'd sit across or beside her. She asked about school, about plans. I stumbled through vague answers. Then, without warning, she said, "I used to dream about leaving this town, just packing a bag and not looking back. Then I got married instead." Her voice didn't break, but it carried something heavier than silence. I wanted to ask what happened, why she sounded like someone who still thought about leaving. But I didn't. I just watched the steam rise from her cup, and wondered if it was rude to want to know more than she was ready to give. The age difference sat between us like a quiet clock, ticking but never mentioned. Every now and then, I'd imagine what it would look like to anyone else. Me sitting in her kitchen, her leaning on the counter, both of us too aware of how easy it was to keep talking. And yet, I didn't leave. When the tea cooled, we sat in the kind of silence that wasn't empty. I folded the corner of the paper towel in my hand over and over until it felt like it might tear. She noticed, and for the first time that night, she reached out, took it gently from me, and flattened it against the table. A small gesture, nothing more. But her hand lingered just long enough for me to feel heat rush through me. It became a habit before I realized it. Walking past her porch, slowing down just in case she was outside. She usually was watering the plants, sweeping leaves that didn't need sweeping, standing with a mug in her hand like she'd been waiting for an excuse. One evening, she waved me in before I even said hello. The house felt different at night. Quieter, softer. A lamp in the corner lit the room, casting long shadows across the bookshelves. She handed me a glass of water, her fingers brushing mine. Longer than they should have. We sat on the couch, not close but not far either. She asked something about my classes, then let the question trail off, her eyes staying on me like she already knew the answer didn't matter. I tried to think of something smart to say. All that came out was, "I like being here." Her hand stilled on the rim of her glass. A silence fell, not heavy but stretched thin, like it might snap if either of us moved. And then, a knock at the door. Her breath caught. She set her glass down too quickly, water spilling onto the coaster. "Stay here," she whispered, standing. I heard voices. My friend's. He was looking for something he left earlier. I froze. Every part of me tense, like I'd been caught doing something I couldn't explain. She handled it with ease, her voice steady, no hint of me in it. The door shut again. She leaned against it, her shoulders sinking as though the moment had been stolen right out from under her. When she came back to the living room, neither of us spoke. She picked up the cloth, dabbed at the small spill on the table. Her hand trembled just enough for me to notice. "You should go before it gets late," she said quietly, not looking at me. I stood, but not right away. My chest felt tight, words pressing to get out. Something about how I didn't care, how I wanted to stay. But my mouth refused to betray me. At the door, she opened it, but didn't step aside right away. Her hand rested on the frame. Mine hovered at my side, wanting to close the gap. Our eyes caught. For a second, too long. I leaned forward, not fully, just enough to feel the air shift between us. Her lips parted like she might say something or stop me. Neither happened. I stepped back instead. She exhaled, soft, almost like relief. Or regret. Walking home, I couldn't stop replaying it. That almost. That half-breath we shared in the doorway. And the way her hand had tightened on the wood, like she needed something solid to keep herself from moving closer. It was late afternoon, the kind of fading light that makes everything look softer, less real. She'd asked if I want to walk with her. Just a quick loop around the block, she said. We ended up at the small park near the edge of town. The benches there were old, the wood chipped, paint peeling. She brushed off a spot with her hand and sat. I sat beside her, careful not to sit too close. For a while we just watched kids on the swings, their shouts carrying into the still air. She held her coat tighter across her chest, like the evening chill had found her before me. "You'll probably forget all this someday," she said suddenly. I turned. "What do you mean?" She kept her eyes forward. "These walks. Talking with me. You'll move on. You're supposed to." Something in my chest pulled tight. "Is that what you want?" Her jaw worked, but no words came. Instead, she laughed under her breath, short and humorless. "God, listen to me. I sound pathetic. You don't." Her fingers traced the edge of the bench, nails catching on the rough wood. I wanted to take her hand, stop the restless motion, but I didn't move. "I keep thinking," she said quietly, "about how wrong this looks. My age, who I am to you, the neighbor, practically invisible until now." She finally looked at me then. Her eyes weren't steady. "You shouldn't be here with me." I swallowed, but my voice came out anyway. "And yet I am." The words hung there, raw and heavier than I meant them to be. She let out a slow breath. Her shoulders dropped, like something inside her had loosened, even if just for a moment. You make me. She stopped, shook her head. Tried again. I forget myself when you're around. And that scares me more than it should. Her voice broke on that last word. Not loud, just enough that it left an echo in me. We sat in silence, the kind that felt like standing at the edge of something neither of us could step away from. I imagined reaching for her hand, leaning in, letting the moment crash into what we'd both been circling. I could almost feel the weight of it. But I didn't. She didn't. Instead, she whispered, almost to herself, "What are we doing?" Her question lingered in the air, unanswered, trembling between us like a thin thread that could snap at any second. After that day on the bench, something shifted. She wasn't on the porch anymore when I walked by. The lights in her living room stayed dim, curtains half closed. I told myself she was busy, tired, had other things to do, but the silence stretched into days, then a week. I stopped taking my walks at the same time. Or maybe I still did, just slower, waiting for the sound of her door. It never came. When I finally saw her again, it wasn't like before. She was outside with a man, older, sharp-looking, leaning against his car like he belonged there. I kept walking, head down, but her laugh carried across the street. Different, softer, practiced. I almost turned back. I didn't. That night, my phone lit up. A message from her. Short, neutral. Hope school's going all right. I stared at it too long. Wrote 3 different replies. Deleted them all. Days passed. I caught myself noticing things I hadn't before. An extra mug in her sink, mail stacked neatly instead of scattered, her car gone at odd hours. The distance felt intentional, like she'd drawn a line in the dirt and stepped back behind it. And still I waited. One evening, I finally saw her again, alone this time, carrying groceries to the door. I almost called out, almost offered to help, but something about the way she held herself, shoulders tight, eyes forward, made me stop. I didn't knock. I didn't say her name. I just watched her disappear inside, the door closing quick behind her. Later that night, I typed a message. "Do you want to walk again?" My thumb hovered over send, but I didn't press it. It happened on a night that felt almost accidental. I was coming back from the store, plastic bag in one hand, when I saw her standing on her porch. No coat, no mug, just her arms crossed, staring out at the street like she'd been waiting for someone who never came. She saw me before I could look away. "Hey," she said, her voice carrying low, uncertain. I walked up the steps slowly, bag rustling at my side. Neither of us smiled. Inside, the house smelled faintly of tea, though no cup was in sight. She leaned against the counter, arms still crossed. I set the bag down, trying not to fidget. "You stop walking," she said finally. "You stop being outside," I answered. Her lips pressed into a thin line. For a second, I thought she might ask me to leave. Instead, she pushed her hands through her hair and let out a shaky breath. I tried to. Pull back, I mean. I thought it would be better if her words faltered. But I hated it. The quiet. I swallowed. My throat felt tight. I hated it too. The room fell still. Just the faint hum of the fridge, the sound of her breathing. She met my eyes, and there was no shield this time. "Do you know how wrong this could be?" "Yes." My voice was steadier than I felt. "But I'm here anyway." She let that hang, studying me as if searching for doubt. I didn't look away. Her hand lifted, hovered like she wasn't sure it belonged to her anymore. Then it settled on the counter between us, palm flat, fingers close to mine, but not touching. "I'm scared of what I'll want if this doesn't stop," she whispered. I let my hand shift, closing the space, just enough that my fingers brushed hers. "Maybe we don't stop, then." Her eyes softened, not with certainty, but with something that felt closer to relief. She nodded once. Small, almost invisible. "Okay." Time didn't flip overnight. Nothing dramatic. No one whispered about us on the street. No sudden announcement. No lines crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. It just shifted. The late walks came back, slower this time, not every night, but enough. Sometimes we looped by the park. Sometimes we didn't. The old bench was still there, peeling wood and all. She'd brush it clean with her hand like always, and I'd sit beside her without thinking about the space between us anymore. She still took her coffee black. I'd given up pretending. so she started keeping cream in her fridge. One morning, 8:47 a.m., I remember because the kitchen clock ticked too loud. I walked in half awake, and the carton was already out on the counter before I even asked. She just smiled like it had been there for me all along. The quiet didn't scare her anymore. We'd sit with tea cooling between us, conversations trailing off into stillness, and neither of us rushed to fill it. It felt like breathing. Sometimes I catch myself watching her when she isn't looking. The way she leans on the porch railing at dusk. The way her hands linger on a mug, steady now instead of restless. And every so often, she catches me watching. She doesn't look away. I think about the first time she said, "You're out walking late." How I almost kept going, almost missed everything that came after. Now, when we're side by side, at the bench, at the kitchen table, even just passing in the hall, it feels less like a pause and more like the sentence finally finished itself. Not perfect, not a story for anyone else. Just ours. CH2.